Welcome back to the new Federal State of China special sessions on LFA TV every day from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And joining us today is our beautiful Feather and handsome Kevin. And lots of people might already seen Kevin yesterday. So I would like to give Feather, a first greeting to our audience and families is on LFA TV.
Hi everyone on LFA TV and everyone who is watching our live stream and the videos later. My name is Feather, I'm from Canada. Today it's my second day of seeing the trial. Also, today is the second day and we just came back from the court and we have a lot of news to share with you. Kevin?
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin. I was on the show yesterday, so thank you so much for having me here again today. And just like Feather, I was in court for the second day and also just came back.
Perfect. Everybody was aware that Kevin gave us a short briefing on yesterday's court proceedings, primarily on jury selections, and lots of questions were raised on, and many of the juror candidates were, be excused because of their, personal reasons. And as everybody knows that the jury has been, the juror candidate selection process has been continuing since yesterday. So Kevin, would you like to give our audience kind of like a summary of what happened yesterday? Because we haven't, Feather actually, because you were in court the entire day.
Yes. So in the morning, as we all know, it's mostly a group questioning about like some health issues and personal issues or extreme hardship because of the long period of the trials, and a lot of people have been excused for that reason. And in the afternoon, so we have the questioning has been narrowed down to personal questions like if they know they have any knowledge on any of the charges, any family or personal connections with a list of names. The list could be like witness lists and any relations
that can be
government
mentioned in the trial.
Yeah, any names mentioned in trial, and any relations in the government and federal government, and also any strong views on a lot of like political views, and including religious and philosophical views. And then after the questioning, we have narrowed down to some individual questioning. So this is very specific questions about one person's as specific as marital status, their highest education level, a previous job or current job, how long have they been working for that job, as well as the period of time they've been living in this district, in this area. So, we, at the end of the day, we have the jurors have been excused until to 23 in total at the end of the day yesterday. So this morning we have 23 jurors in total to begin the second day. Yes.
Right. So, in short, yesterday we have like 100 juror candidates to start with.
Yeah.
And many of them was, to be excused because of reasons of the length of the trial, their personal, backgrounds, and then also their personal beliefs about the current administration or previous administration with the United States government, also their strong bills against the Chinese or the Communist Party.
Yes.
And so here, we have a photo of, actually a drawing from one of our supporters who actually went to the court yesterday, and it vividly tells you, how what the court looks like yesterday. And right here in kind of like the middle, you saw a gentleman in gray suit, and that was Miles, right? And so, Kevin, since you were, since you were in the court half day, and then today, it begins with the 23 juror candidates. Tell us a little bit about how you think of Miles' mentality, and how does he look like yesterday, and how did that, does he change? Does he, makes you feel that he was tired or exhausted?
Yeah. Well, yesterday we saw him wearing a gray suit, white shirt, and a colorful tie. And today he was wearing a dark blue navy suit, double-breasted, with a white dress shirt and a black tie. And I think his he was pretty confident from yesterday, seeing that he wore like a very nice looking suit today, double-breasted as well. And his mentality it seems to be the same as yesterday, maybe even more cheerful. He was definitely smiling a lot more today as well, laughing with his lawyers and during breaks and stuff. And when we got into the court, I'll just give a quick overview actually. When we got into court today at 9 a.m., the court was already in session, and they were just going over preemptive strikes. So as I mentioned yesterday, both the defense and the government, they have a certain number of no reason strikes to remove or to get any juror excused. And so as we got in court, they were just doing this earlier this morning. And throughout the entire process, Miles was smiling and just looking around and looking very confident, well rested and high spirited. Sure. And so when we got in, they were talking to juror number 2, and they were trying to get excused because of health issues and financial hardships. And then after that was juror number 7. And then moving on at 9:25. There was a sort of a short break, and Miles was talking to his lawyer, just as intimate conversations as yesterday. Hands on shoulders, on arms. And then after that, the judge Torres, she asked for the defense and for the government to speak privately, and there they started going over their preemptory strikes. So for Miles, his lawyers, they wanted to strike juror number 4, 57, 11, and 15.
5 and 7.
Sorry, 4, 5, 7, 11, and 15. So 5 in total. And then the defense wanted to strike 49, 69, and 70. So today in the morning, there were about 8 strikes used. And then after that, the judge announced that there were almost 200 new jurors coming up. Almost 100 new jurors coming up. And then from there afterwards, they confirmed juror 10, 12, and 34. So that's 3 out of 12 jurors confirmed. They also confirmed jury number 58, but then they excused them later afterwards. And then moving on, around 9:45, Miles was standing around, just looking around and talking to marshals as well. He was chit-chatting with the marshals behind him, and it just shows, how personable he is. It shows his personality and how he can talk to anyone, and that's that's a big part of his charm. And then afterwards there was sort of a break, and then he left the room, and then he comes back around 10:10, and so now now Judge Torres is going and just talking with jurors from yesterday as well, and seeing if they should be excused or not. And then finally around 10:40, the jury candidates for today, number 101 to 204, finally they come in, and from our section, or from our perspective on the screen, from what we could see, same as yesterday, the jury was very diverse. We counted about 6 male, 4 female, so basically like 50-50 almost, and of different races, Caucasian, African American, Asian American,
we've seen a lot of Asians today. Yeah.
And then, as usual, Miles was looking at each juror, smiling as they sat down. But then finally, at 10:55, Judge Torres just goes through the usual process and explains to the juror the intro, what the trial's about, what the charges are, and how the jury selection process will work. Exact same spiel as yesterday. So she went to general questions such as health problems, like vision, hearing, then medications, understanding English, interpretation of translations, and then the length of the trial, any financial hardships. And as expected, there was a lot of people who held up their hands when the financial hardships question were asked.
It's actually extreme hardship.
Extreme hardship, sorry, And then there were about, I want to say maybe like, they didn't actually announce how many jurors were excused before the break, but I would say maybe quite a lot.
I think it will be more than 50% will be excused because of that reason. Yeah.
Because yesterday there was about 51 excused, and that took honestly
only
an
49.
hour.
Yeah, that took an hour because if one person take a minute to get questioned, that's like 50% is like an hour.
So I would say probably around the same 50%. And that's basically it.
Thanks, Kevin. For our audience, we have to understand that the jury selection process for Miles, it means that ultimately they will have a 12-juror group, right?
Yeah.
With 6 alternates. And at this moment, all of these selections of juror candidates were actually prepared for the strikes, for the preventory strikes, and 3 candidates have already been confirmed out of the entire pool. And so we have more juror candidates that are going over the broad questions and going through into personal questions about their background, financials, and their living and working history here in the United States as well. And so we have not actually been gone through much of the trial. And yesterday the judge did express that the estimation of the length of the trial will be approximately 7 weeks, and she did not give any certain promise, because she said that it's impossible to actually predict the length of the trial. And so how long do you guys think that the selection process will take? We obviously have 3 candidates that are confirmed already, and we obviously need more, right? And so do you think that the jury selection process will take longer, and maybe even till after Memorial Day?
It's possible, because as we know, like the extreme hardship about the lengths, that question have made a lot of the candidates excused. So it's possible that there's only a few people left for them to choose as jurors. So we have to see after today how many are left, and how many can after the individual questioning as well. Like there are so many filtering and like a lot of questioning to do as well, just to make sure that to prevent them from being biased and unfair judge for the trial. So I would say it's possible that it lasts until next week. Yeah, but we'll have to see after today's progress.
Right. And Kevin, with all of the jurors, regardless if they are being excused or they have been confirmed into the juror group, do you see a diversity in their personal background as well? Like, are they working in different industries, or are they all kind of like spreading out into same club, same organization?
Yeah, I think it's very diverse as well. From what I remember, one was in business, one was in construction, the other was in the healthcare industry, from what I remember.
Is it the selected jurors?
The selected jurors.
No, the entire pool.
Oh, and very, very diverse. Like I mentioned yesterday, it was, it's randomly sampled from the New York Southern District population, right? So I think they chose a pretty good subset, and it's very diverse.
What about the age range?
The age range, I would say from yesterday, late 20s and up. There are not a lot of people that actually, they're elderlies. And there's some elderlies, I think they've been excused due to health vision problems, and which is very understandable. And that's basically it. Yeah, like I would say late 20s and 30s and up.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the jurors will end up being maybe around anywhere from like the 20s to the late 50s, 60s, just because of you have to have be in a certain state of health to attend a trial for 7 weeks every day from 9 to 2:45, right? So yeah.
Yeah, the reason that I asked this was, Kevin, you mentioned about the length of the trial, right?
Yeah.
It would be exhausting for everybody to actually sit in the court every single day, through the morning to the afternoon, and it would be the same to the jurors as well. So, like you said, it's totally understandable that people are, being excused because of their health concerns. And on the other hand, yesterday the judge also gave, everybody kind of like a briefing on Miles' charges, the allegations that the government imposed against him. But what impresses me was the judge made it very clear that the allegations came from the government, and the allegation itself or the indictment itself is not evidence, and that the burden of proof is actually carried by the government. And so the instructions that the judge provided to the jurors, to the public, was that it was the burden of the government to prove, and until then, that Miles was innocent, and all of these needs to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And so that was a sharp difference from what we see in the courtroom in China. And so I don't know if you guys have any understanding of CCP's laws and rule of law in China, but just tell us a little bit of your thoughts and maybe a little bit of comparison that you think that, you know, the United States justice system is you know, completely different from what you saw in China or you heard about CCP's law.
Yeah, what I've heard about the law in China, it's there's not a foundation, there's not basically a rule. It's that whoever stays in power, whatever have, like, I would say, in the interest of themselves, or in they're always let's say have more, let's say more justice over others, and that's
they're the ones to rule what justice means to others, right?
There might be a justice, but there's some are just have more rights than others. Yeah.
Right, and the reason, you know, I asked about the age range and about the diversity of their backgrounds was if you look at CCP's courtrooms, right, like Kevin said, it was almost a show to the public, and so every single one, you know, whether the police who was or the marshals or the judge or the public spectators, they were all controlled and paid probably by the Chinese Communist Party. And so what we saw today is that the jurors, the entire pool was a random sample of New Yorkers or of people who live locally for quite a long time. And for public spectators, you guys obviously are voluntarily going to the group and voluntarily sharing the information to the public. So you know, to that extent, it's already a sharp difference from what we saw in China. And so, Kevin, tell us a little bit about, you know, today's the general court situation. Obviously, yesterday you said that you guys were not able to actually go into the court due to the numbers of the jurors, and you guys viewed the proceedings through the screen. Is that the same case of today as well? And how many people, you know, you were staying with to view this election?
Yeah, it was the exact same situation as yesterday. I'm just assuming because of the jury selection process. Like yesterday, there was another 100+ jurors in the courtroom,
right?
And so we went to the exact same viewing room as last time, and I would say they're probably around the same amount of viewers as well. And it was just you know, same as yesterday, you know, quiet, respectful, and just focused on viewing what was happening in the courtroom.
Were there any reporters outside today? Any cameras?
No, but I did see some new faces. So.
New face for sure, around the court and in as well as in the courtroom as well. We never talked to each other, or they just sit very far from us. And because, you know, the big TV on one side of the room, so we all gathered in the one side of the court. So the others are like only a few people sitting in the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So previously, we do, you know, share. We do understand that Mr. Guo's case draws a lot of public attention, as well as media attention as well. And it was saying, you know, it was said that more than 200 media outlets would actually want to report on Mr. Guo's case. And you know, since yesterday. And since yesterday, you know, some of the media outlets have already actually given out reports that was not based on facts 2 miles, you know, especially with some, you know, big media outlets. And I want to also share that the new federal state of China's X account, Twitter account, NFSC Speaks, will share the information and updates of the trial very timely through day 1. And this is the account where everybody could gather information, and NFS Speaks was also available on Getter, the media outlet as well. So I'm gonna just read it out loud. Judge read the names of potential witnesses for both sides and some individuals and entities whose names may be mentioned during the trial to the jury candidates to confirm whether they're familiar with them. Some raised their hands. Judge confirmed with the jury candidates if their family members and friends have any relationship with any government departments, or and some raise their hands as well. So judge and both legal teams are confirming with these candidates one by one. So as we can see, you know, at this moment, judge is still going through some broad questions and questions specifically related to the case, right? Potential witnesses or any other names that might be mentioned in the trial in these proceedings. Also about, you know, whether the candidates was actually having a relationship or working with the government before. And I think, you know, this was something very different from what we saw in China, because when when the Chinese Communist government calls on a witness, it was the same witness from the CCP state government. It was never, they never do the background check to tell the public whether someone was actually working for the government or not, or if you have any specific, experience or specific attitude that would, that would prevent you from giving out a fair and judgment of the case. So Feder, seeing out these, seeing out these kind of like general questions into individual questions, did that change of your understanding of what United States justice means to a person? Because obviously Miles himself is not an American citizen, right? He applied for a political asylum here. He seeks protections of the United States government here as, an outspoken person whose mission is to take down the Chinese Communist Party. Just by visiting the courtroom on your day 2, did that change any of your understanding of, the justice system here?
For me, because I've never been to a courtroom and at a hearing or just seeing the trial and how the process is, and even from the beginning, from the jury selection, I was surprised of how long it takes to select only 12 juries with 6 substitutes. But after going through the entire process of one day, I understood why this could be so essential and important for the justice in America. Because these questions are very, very specific, and they not just focus on the present situation of one person. They also go back to ask about the experience that you've had, or if you had some legal issues before, just to see if someone had some emotional feelings about the government and about the legal system that could prevent them being unfair and biased as a juror. So they're really trying to make sure that every single question being asked have the central message is to find out if the juror is eligible to judge fairly and unbiased based on their personal life and personal experience and within themselves and within the society.
Right. So, Kevin, when juror candidates express their concerns, regardless if it was health concerns or, concerns of their attitudes or understanding of a government or a justice department, when they conduct these conversations, were there any conversations actually went to the public that some juror candidates might express of their experience and then tell the public about their feelings, or all of these conversations were held privately among the judge and defense and the government?
I mean, it really depends on the question being asked. I've seen, I'm sure Feather has seen as well yesterday, some questions the judge asks all the jurors, and then some of them will raise their hands and publicly speak in front of all the other jurors, and in front of the entire court. And then there's some where, for example, the health concerns, right? The judge would call up the jurors one by one, and then they would discuss the issues with the defense and the government together.
Right. So, as you can tell, even if some of the jurors are excused already, that the court or the system itself have been trying to help and protect their privacies as well. And so that was something, that the Chinese Communist Party never gave to the Chinese people. And if people all remember about Mr. Guo's, employees and family members, many of them were actually detained because of Mr. Guo's activities and his voices against the Chinese Communist Party. Some of his former employees were actually taken, were actually being kidnapped by the Chinese Communist Party police, even from Hong Kong back to mainland China. And many of them and their family members went disappeared afterwards. So they were forced to, make interview recordings to the government, and they forced the CCP government forced them to plead guilty in front of the camera. And once the CCP released the plead guilty videos to the public, all these people disappeared from the society completely. And even with former employees and family members, they were not able to actually reach out to them. So But even with today, Miles has been charged of 12 federal crime counts here in the United States, and the judge repetitively saying that he is innocent until proven guilty, and the judge said that it is the jury's burden to decide about the facts. And the judge was the only one to tell everybody what the law means and what the law means to the counts. So that seems to me a very different understanding of what law needs to be applied to the society. Obviously, in communist China, it's always the judge, and the judge is the prosecutor. That's the most strange thing, right? Judge is always the prosecutor. Prosecutor tells you what law means, and the police works with the prosecutor as well. And so the system here in the United States obviously gave people the right to defend themselves. Do you believe that Miles will have that same spirits that in defending himself in the later on proceedings? Better.
For sure. I 100% or 1,000% believe that the government of United States and the justice system and the law system will give the justice deserved to Miles Guo. When you mentioned about how the court determined law, that's something exactly being said by the judge towards yesterday. She said, jury determined the fact and court determined the law. And jury has to hear all the evidences before defendants it's proven guilty. That's exactly what she said.
Right, exactly, and it definitely shapes everybody's understanding about the law, right? And so, Kevin, because it's a lengthy trial, I would say it's a lengthy trial, and it's a trial related to federal crime charges, and mostly are financially related, right? When the judge explained about the charge to the public, is there any words that makes you feeling that there is an attitude, or it was a very simple based on what the allegation was and how it was addressed to the public? Because obviously, if you watched Chinese Communist Party state propaganda, right, it was all the words and the terms they used was always very biased, and it gives you the emotions believe that someone as a defendant is already a criminal. And so is that the same situation or a completely different situation in the court?
It's a completely different situation, 100%. Every time the judge mentioned those charges yesterday and today, she was always using very neutral words. It was always alleged, right? It was never like, oh, he did the crime. It was always the government alleges the defendant committed the crime or committed whatever fraud or whatever, right? It was just 100% neutral, and it leaves no room for any bias or any preference towards either side, and that's the big difference between the U.S. justice system and the CCP, right?
Exactly.
Because here in the U.S. you have due process. Sure, the process is slow, but it's steady and it's fair, and that's what really matters. And this is why the CCP's justice system is just a show, like I said yesterday.
Right, exactly. And Kevin mentioned one thing that, people were complaining about the justice system being slow.
Yeah.
But if you look at all of the speedy trials of the Chinese Communist Party, sometimes people were not even notified, or the public was not even notified when a defendant was, being charged or being arrested. But here today, all of the announcements were made to the public, unless, some of the cases are actually sealed, that the public would not be able to know. The other part I want to mention was that if you look at all of the defendants, I will not say political defendants, but all of the defendants or criminals in the Chinese Communist Party state, many of them show different mentality when they were arrested and when they appear on trial. People were having white hairs, lost much weight, and shows completely different mentality of a person when they were put on trial. And it was not because of the lengthy or the speedy of the trial itself. It was because of the torture that they received in the jail or in the detention center. But we did not see any of these happening to Miles, right?
No. Yeah, first of all, he is not a criminal until he's proven guilty, and we can see that from what we can see about his state of being. It's very healthy and very energized, and he's still very fit, and we can see that he's being very well taken care of, and by himself and by the place he stays and by the people around him, and yeah. That's from what I can see.
Yeah, honestly, if you put him out right now onto the streets, you couldn't even tell he was in MDC for the past year. That's just how different the treatment in the U.S. justice system is compared to the CCP. I mean, he's still innocent, right?
Yes.
He's innocent until proven guilty, and that's something that the judge made really clear to everyone in the court, and that the burden of proof is on the government, and until proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he is guilty, he is presumed innocent, and that's one of the biggest differences.
Yes.
Compared to the CCP.
Right, exactly, and you know what, when you saw any of these CCP courtrooms where a defendant was already treated like a criminal, and the public announcement and all of the media attention was already describing the defendant as a criminal, and even today some of the major media outlets in the United States does the same to Miles, and it is unfair because it's not the facts and what we saw from the court.
Yes.
It was not what the instructions that the judge gave to the public. So it was obviously, some of these media outlets were trying to torture or twisted the facts.
Yes.
and trying to, change the mindset of how people should look at Miles' cases. And this is primarily why, our voices does matter. And to having everybody understands about the difference, about, the appreciation and gratitude of this process, it was also coming out, wholeheartedly from the new federal state of China. And so, Feather, I asked the same question to Kevin yesterday. I said that, he does not work in law and he was not a law school student. Was it very difficult for you to understand the court proceedings, or do you think, any of these has changed your understanding just into the laws?
Yes. So before coming in New York, I had I would say zero knowledge about the law, but then the whole process I wasn't really very unfamiliar of. But I had a very long meeting with Ella the other day, and she helped me a lot understanding the whole process and how things works and a lot of legal terms, and that helped me definitely improve my understanding when I'm actually in the court and then seeing that the things they've been discussed or the questions they've been asked, and I have a clear understanding of how it is and why it is, and it's very new, and it's very new to me, and I feel first of all overwhelmed, but after learning about it, I feel confident, and I'm really eager to learn more and then to follow the trial, and at the meantime, I will improve my law knowledge and then to help spread the news and share with everyone.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Kevin, do you think that you will attend a law school after?
I was just telling Kevin that maybe I'm interested in becoming a lawyer and learn about law and getting law training.
Well, I'll definitely have more law knowledge than most applicants now, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And the journey for any of our members in the new federal state of China to go through these process are very important.
Yes.
And obviously, part of our mission is to bring the rule of law back to China, right?
Sure.
And we have to understand what rule of law means and how, in a mature system of the justice, how does these laws work, and why are people, having those rights to defend themselves?
Yes.
One of the other difference here is that in China, right, the government would sometimes replace your own attorneys if you were a defendant, if you were being indicted by the government. But here, Miles obviously independently chose his lawyers, and from Kevin's descriptions that he always had these intimate conversations with these lawyers, with laughters, with smiles, and this seemed to be very different from what we saw on CCP's TV screens, because all of the court videotapes, people would look like they were dead face, they were numb, they were they were not be able to actually smile, to share kind of the trust among the team, and just describe a little bit more to the audience, and how do you what do you think of the team relationship among Miles' defense team, and do you think that they have worked very well and they have treated Miles as one of their friends and families and helped them to win the case?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we all know here Miles is very personable, very charming, and just from what I've seen the past 2 days, the relationships between him and his lawyers are very, very good. No, just from the conversations they're having, they're smiling, they're laughing, and I
You
think,
did not hear those conversations, right? It should be
Whispering.
attorney-client privilege, guys.
100%. But I think it looked like earlier this morning, one of the lawyers were commenting on Miles' suit, and Miles was also commenting on the other lawyer's suit as well. I think he was explaining to him the different types of suits. Yeah.
The fabrics, maybe.
The fabrics,
Right,
yeah, I
right.
think so, yeah. So that was something really cool to see on screen on TV.
Right,
Yes.
right. And then, you know, for people who have not very been familiar with Miles, he always has his own etiquette about how you dress and how you need to appear to the public, and to, you know, to even to the details of, you know, what frames that you need to choose, what fabrics you need to choose on your suit, and then what ties with what materials. And so it was always kind of like his habit of getting to and sharing his knowledge of fabrics and textiles, and the fashion, of course, you know, his love and pursuit of fashion to all of the people, you know, who were around him. So it was always, you know, charming and cheerful to hear stories from complex court proceedings. And Fader, you know, with you, because you just went to the court for 2 days, and some of the people that you met there in the courtrooms might have already been into the court because of their expertise or because of you know, their previous knowledge about the law. And do you think that, you know, when people went in there, do you think that people were waiting on any specific results, or do you think that everybody was very quiet and everybody was very respectful to the court and everybody was trying to observe and learning the updates from the courtroom?
Like, you mean the people that went with us?
Yes,
okay.
the public spectators.
Yes, for sure. Most of us, we know the people that went with us, have very respectful manners, and we.
How do they dress? Do they dress in nice suits?
Yes.
Or flip flops?
There's no way they were getting with flip flops or with sandals, anything like that. They were dressing very decently, and with suit very clean, very proper. And we're very quiet, and we discuss, even there's not even in the actual courtroom, we discuss in very low volume and among each other, and I will have a lot of questions to raise as well, and I would ask others who know about law as well, and they are very respectful. And
they're very focused as well, right?
Very, very focused.
They did not fall asleep because of the waiting or the questions?
Well, because I'm sitting in the first row, so I
So
wouldn't
you
tell.
really don't know. Okay, this girl is being honest to us, guys.
So I wouldn't tell if anyone fell asleep. But we're all very focused, and we as soon as the screen goes off or there's audio issues, then right away we have to announce the law clerk or the marshals about the issue, and just so we can have the full view and the screen time that we could see.
Right.
And yeah.
Right, and Kevin, I asked you yesterday because I mentioned about one of the court proceedings that happened to Miles, his families, and his previous employees in China, that their family members were actually, being kidnapped by the police, and the gun was held, behind their backs. And today, has any of these things happened in the court today?
100% no. Like, even in the courtroom, Miles, right? He has no handcuffs, no shackles, nothing, right? He's just allowed to move freely. He even talked with the marshals, and when he was leaving the room too, there was no marshal grabbing onto him or showing him the way. He just went, and the marshals followed him. And so it just shows, even as someone who's detained, you also have a lot of freedom, and you have the respect that you deserve, because you are presumed innocent until proven guilty, right?
Right.
And so in CCP China, you're proven guilty. You're just proven guilty, right?
Yeah.
By the judge, even before the court trial starts. And so that's such a stark contrast. And as you mentioned before, that's why we're trying to bring the rule of law from the American justice system to the new China.
Right, exactly, and we want to share these facts, right, and our knowledge about Miles' previous experience, because that shows you how important it is for us to learn through the process, and that shows us, why we are so determined here, to join this cause and to learn from this journey, and because it really matters to the Chinese people, and it is the first time, I would say, for a large community of Chinese people who are actually being treated as dissidents of the Chinese Communist state, and speaking about taking down the Chinese Communist Party to actually learn the United States justice systems and the court proceedings. I want to also remind all of our audience that all of these court documents are public on the docket. You can also find these court documents on our website, nfscofficial.com. You just go to the column court documents, every single court documents, including the indictment, the judge orders, and some of the transcripts will be made public until after the close of the trial. So let's just go over the our X account once again to see if there is any new updates. Obviously, we understand that there are some pending requests that was raised from government, and I think that today judge actually said that in the court room in the afternoon. Judge said about the letter 344. It was about kind of like requests related to victims that the government proposed that that they want to include 2 testimonies of allegedly victims of the fraudulent investments, and I think judge said that some of the requests from the government was denied and some was granted, and so we will be able to actually read the details after the court document is public, and so. Federer, obviously lots of reading of legal stuff these days, right? And lots of recapping and meetings about these court documents. Can you imagine how much time that Miles spent for preparing his trial every single day? And can you imagine about his routines? Because Kevin mentioned yesterday that you heard that Miles probably woke up like 4 or 5 a.m. And just from your kind of like opinion, can you imagine of how long his day will be and how much time that he devoted into prepare for the trial?
Oh yeah. Like I wouldn't have an idea until actually see and learn about this whole process of the trial, and then I couldn't imagine from the past year and over a year now that the everyday life of his and how much he has been how much time is consumed into preparing and learning about this knowledge, and I can tell that his English improved so much that he was able to communicate without a translator. A lot of times we see on screen with his lawyers, and a lot of efforts definitely has been put into it, and not just from outside perspective, but we'll have to ask him once he
exactly. I was joking with Kevin yesterday. I said that maybe Miles' English will be better than yours when he came back home. And so I was reminded by our back team, our tech team, that there are some new updates from our X account. So we would like to see those and maybe read it and share it with our families in LFA TV. So let's see what updates have been bringing from the court to us. And okay, perfect. So now the latest news is that judge asked the jury candidates whether they had heard about this case through the media. 8 candidates confirm, and judge and both legal teams are confirming with these candidates one by one. And judge asked the jury candidates if they have any strong bills regarding the Chinese government and Chinese Communist Party that may prevent them from making a fair an impartial decision in this case, and 12 candidates stood up. It was a surprising number to me. Judge and both legal teams are confirming with these candidates one by one. So it seems to us that the question has been moving forward.
Yes.
And now these questions has been related to about their attitudes of whether they have attitudes about the Chinese Communist government. And one of the questions was very important, right? If they have any knowledge about how media reports on this case. And obviously the court wants to help the jurors to have a very fair view and unbiased view of this case. And so all of the learning of this case needs to be from the court, from the judge, from the government, and from the defense, not from the media and not from the public.
Yes.
And so, Kevin, did the judge give out any specific instructions to the jurors that they should not search Miles, they should not search about the case? Did the judge specifically mention about that instruction?
Yeah. In fact, they also mentioned during breaks as well to not discuss anything about the case with other jurors. And then she also did mention that only use information they receive in court. Do not use any outside sources from internet, from friends or any family.
Right.
Only from information in the case.
Wow.
In the court. So you can just see how, how unbiased they're trying to make the case, and how they're trying to show jurors that this case is supposed to be very fair and unbiased.
Right. It's also a protection for all of the parties, right? It's a protection for the government, protection for the defendant, and the protection for the judge as well. And so, Feder, since the jurors were being asked about, not to discuss among the jurors, even the jurors themselves, did the judge also mention that they should not have any communication with the government nor with the defendant team as well?
That's right. No discussion, communication between the jurors and attorneys, the lawyers, and she specifically mentioned if any jurors see the lawyers and they want to say hi to them, the lawyers are ignoring them. That's not because the lawyers are being rude. It's just a part of the process. They're trying to make this as fair and unbiased and as possible for the jurors. Yes, and that's exactly what Kevin mentioned. No outside facts have to be considered for the jurors have to be considered outside. The juror can, there's no outside facts that they should be considered, and they should not be discussing with this case with any one outside of the court, including their family and friends, even their partners have, some of the partners are like police or detectives. When they know a lot about bankruptcy cases and stuff like that, they have to separate from them completely and not to talk to them or be influenced by them, and on this matter, and that's all.
Right. So basically, what the updates in you guys were saying was the judge made it very clear that all of the knowledge that they obtained from with the course, related to the course, must be coming out from the courtroom.
Yes.
So not even from outside of the room, right? So it was a very physical kind of like restriction and instruction to all of them. And the reason, I asked these questions is that in China, it is very common that the communist government went after any of these lawyers and to pay them with under table monies and under table deals, so that these lawyers will convince the defendant to plead guilty to the government. And on the other hand, the communist government can also go after the so-called jurors or the other prosecutors to make a favorable decision for the government, not to the defendant. And it seems that it's absolutely not the case here in the United States, because even the juror, first of all, judge was not the one to determine whether Miles was guilty or not, right? Judge was not the one. Judge determined the law, and it was the jurors, and jurors was are randomly selected, and then they were being told very specifically about how they need to feel about the case and what information that they can obtain, and they should not carry any of these knowledges to any other people outside these courtrooms and even among themselves. So I was just curious, when in this morning, when the defense team and the government used the preemptory strikes, these strikes are without any reasons, right? They will not. Were they giving out any specific reasons to strike a juror, or it was basically a very straightforward strike, and the court needs to grant that strike?
A very straightforward strike. Like I mentioned earlier, the defense is allowed 10 no reason preemptory strikes, and the defense is allowed 6. And so, in the morning earlier, the defense and the prosecution, they were just doing those no reason strikes, and so they gave absolutely no reasons. They just named the juror number, and all the judge did was just say the juror number and say is excused after it, and that was it. It was very straightforward.
Right. So it also gives the defendant the rights and the government the rights, to choose, the jurors that they believe that is fair, that will be fair to the case. So let's see the latest update. Judge asked the jury candidates if they feel strongly towards the Trump administration and the consultants like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. And 21 candidates stood up, and the judge and both legal teams will confirm, with these candidates one by one. And in total, there will be around 40 of these general questions from the judge to these candidates. Wow. So It sounds to me that most of the question that people have concerns and attitudes were, well, first of all, health or the length of the trial, and most of them were actually about the government, right?
Yes.
Government of the United States, government of these consultants, and government of the Chinese Communist Party, and so that was that was seemingly a different kind of like question raised, because obviously Miles, he himself was not a American politician. He was not American citizen, but just because of the specialty of the political movement that he started, and that even questions related to Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro was being raised, and so when they ask these questions, when the judge asks these questions, does the judge say that if you have a favorable view towards Trump administration, you should raise your hand, or it was a more neutral way to say that if you have strong feelings?
It's but mostly, well, not mostly, yes, it's all strong feelings or strong view. That's the exact vocabulary is being used. But because this is very neutral, because strong can be on both sides, could be love or hate, right? But if some they just have some opinions on them, they wouldn't really go and talk to them. But the people who actually went, either it's in the love or hate feelings for the party and for Trump administration, including Chinese Communist Party, yes.
Right, and so Kevin, when these juror candidates were being asked to go through, questions with the government, with defense, and the judge one by one, how long does it approximately take for one juror candidate just for like one question?
I want to say about maybe a minute, 2 minutes. It's very fast. All that happens is the judge asks the juror to come up, and then the defense and the government's already there, and all the judge does is ask the same question, and then the juror will give their reason as to why, and the juror doesn't have to mention if it's positive or negative, just that they have strong feelings, and then if needed, the judge will also ask any follow-up questions, and if not, then that's basically it, and then the juror is dismissed back to their seat, and then the judge will discuss further with the defense and prosecution about whether they should be excused or not. So very straightforward and very quick.
Is it for the strong view on the administration? Yeah. Actually, from my record from yesterday afternoon, it took a half an hour because a lot of people went. Yeah. Because it's actually a private conversation with the judge, and then the judge has to discuss with both parties' attorneys.
Right.
So actually took quite a while to determine whether this juror candidate can be fair and make impartial decisions.
So yeah, about 1 or 2 minutes per person.
And if it's 21 candidates stood up, it will probably take another 20 to 30 minutes, right? Yeah. And so, Kevin, just based on the numbers that we saw today, because obviously, it's gonna be 4 p.m. and the court will stop sharp at 5. Yeah. And then, do you think any further numbers that will come up this afternoon, or any more a smaller pool of candidates will be narrowed down this afternoon?
I think it's very possible that just like yesterday, maybe the jurors will be cut in half again, and then they'll obviously whittle it down to a much smaller amount. Like yesterday, there was I think 23 left at the end of the day. Yeah. Maybe they'll be around the same number, and then hopefully tomorrow they'll confirm a few more jurors as well as alternates, and then hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, maybe the jury selection will be over. Hopefully, but if not, then obviously I'll move back on Tuesday, since Monday it is a holiday, so the court is not in session. But these past few days, I feel like each day it's getting smoother and it's getting faster. So I heard that as well. Judge Torres is also known to be very efficient, and I can see through this trial so far that it's been very structured, and it follows a very rigid process. Yeah. And Judge Torres is obviously trying the best she can.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that you describe it makes me, as an outsider who has not been actually in the courtroom, to feel like that it is very structured, and is obviously very organized, and it follows the exact instruction that the court needs to be, and protect the rights for both parties as well. And so, just a technical question, right, Feder? If there is, if there comes up with a smaller pool, but did not reach, because they have obviously not used the rest of the strikes for both government and the defendant. Will the judge bring over a larger group of juror candidates tomorrow and to go through general questions again, since the the pool has not been piled up yet?
Since I don't have other previous law knowledge, but I think
this seems to be the case, right?
It seems to be the case that they have to find a larger pool, a larger amount of people to come in and the question from the first question again to find the adequate the jurors for this case.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're hoping that that all of these process can be smooth for Miles and his defense team. Obviously, we will be on every day, every business day. Obviously, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on with Getter, with Rumble, and on LFA TV to share these updates with our beautiful young supporters from the whistleblowers movement who actually went to the court and shared this information with us. We obviously appreciate Kevin to come on again and to welcome Feather to appear on our program for the very first time. But I just want to remember, many of our audience and families might already be seeing Feather in our TP USA event last year in Phoenix, right? And Feather gave great interviews yesterday. Kevin did that as well. So just want to remind people that they are not babies. They look babies on the screen, but they're very young and they have great potentials and they are the next generation of the new federal state of China, and so we do appreciate seeing these young bloods on the screen. Again, I want to thank to Jeremy for giving out the new federal state of China, this special segment on Rumble and on LFA TV, and share our love and support to all of the families out there. We will pray for Miles. We will pray for his families, his employees, and all of our supporters here to join the cause to take down the Chinese Communist Party. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. We're hoping to give you more updates. And don't forget to look at our X account, NFSC Speaks.